Greetings to everybody. Welcome to our brothers and sisters. We will continue our readings from the talks on the Bhagavad Gita. And this week I was reading some of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who was Swami Vivekananda's guru. His teachings. And here, in his teachings, he says, illusion is of two kinds. For me, it was very interesting because it tied very much to our philosophy of heartfulness. So I tried to understand what the teachings of the masters are, what his disciples were talking about illusion. Illusion of ignorance and illusion of knowledge. In the illusion, if you have ignorance, you have no idea, that keeps us engrossed in the world. And illusion of knowledge, he says, it liberates us, makes us transcend the world. And that ties that in heartfulness practice, we find Maya is at, illusion is at 0.5. At 0.5, we are in the state of illusion, and we can only cross this with the help of the master. So that is the Maya of ignorance. When you are ignorant, you are unable to cross. So we find illusion is at 0.5, and only with the help of the master we are able to cross this 0.5. So that means we are moving from illusion of ignorance in this world, and that is why until we cross the heart region we are not liberated. And what is this illusion of knowledge? That's where I started to think. So if we look at our anatomy, the 5th point and the 10th point have the same spiritual anatomy, and to cross the 10th point and go beyond the Sahasradhala Kamal, unless the master helps us, we cannot cross it. Then I realized why Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was saying that these two Mayas are whirlpools of God to test if you really want Him. So that tied so much to how we don't touch the 5th point, Master says. That means we cannot cross that without Him pushing us further into the Brahmana Mandal. And same thing he says when it comes to point 10 and the Sahasradhala Kamal. So the ignorance is in all of us. What does that mean? That means we are ignorant of our real nature, real self, the divinity. And this is ignorance, avidya in Sanskrit. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says Maya has two kinds. One is Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. That is knowledge with illusion, which is avidya, and knowledge with awareness. Because when we traverse in the Brahmanda Mandal, we are aware, we have the knowledge, but still we are bound by some illusion. And there, unless we bring humility to ourselves, we can't cross those regions. And a beautiful concept he also says is that the entire Maya is the power of God with which this universe is projected. So it cannot be bad. But the idea is we have to transcend that illusion. We are ignorant and we have to transcend illusion, and then we realize the essence. And talking about Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, about the divine presence, he says, and the power of God, he talks about, he compares it very strangely. He says, it's like the poison in the cobra, but that poison doesn't affect the cobra, but it is the power of the cobra. It is the tool of the cobra. So Maya is some level, is the power of God, which we have to humbly transcend. So even the ignorance is part of illusion, which keeps us trapped. And ignorant illusion is that unawareness. and that keeps us trapped. Whereas knowledge with Maya, with knowledge, is awareness illusion, and which is what we experience this. We are still in illusion, but we are aware. We experience this from Brahmanda Mandal up to the Sahasradala Kamal, and there Master has to take us forward. So his explanation is, this ignorant illusion keeps you trapped in the world. Illusion with awareness makes you transcend the world, because ignorance only makes us see the external world, this body. Awareness makes us feel the inner presence of God. And what did our Babaji say? Ignorance to knowledge to ignorance again. So, heart region is total ignorance, trapped in the world. Mind region is where you are traveling with awareness because you have knowledge now. And then you move to that ultimate humbleness of ignorance into the divine regions. So when I got this book, because Daji always talks about Ashtavakra Gita, how beautiful it is. And so I was trying to read that to compare what they're saying. My search has been like seeing what other teachings are saying, because Master has been talking about them, compared to where we are, what our practices are leading us to. So interestingly, in the Ashtavakra Gita says, to transcend illusion, Daji always says this to us, that we have to treat desires as poison, and we have to develop these qualities. What are those qualities? Forgiveness, straightforwardness, kindness, cheerfulness, and truth. And these he calls them as nectar, and desires he calls them as poison. And in this process is about rejecting the sense of objects and not allowing them to enter us and disturb. It's not that you are shunning the senses, you're refining the senses, so the external disturbances won't enter us. And this Sanskrit word is called dhamma. That means they say it's sense control, but we call it refining of our senses. So entire meditation, what is it doing? It is refining our senses. So according to Ashtavakra, the sense of the more very harmful thing he says is the sense of anger and revengefulness. That he says it can bring complete disturbance in us. But the moment we forgive those who have done harm to us, our mind calms down. And this sentence comes to me when I was so irritated yesterday morning with somebody. I was just like, I can kill this person. We go through those moments. And then I said, oh, let me divert my thought attention. Let me read this book that I just got, Ashtavakra Gita. And the first thing I see is this. According to Ashtavakra, the sense of anger and revengefulness can bring endless disturbance. He says, it's like, who want to sacrifice your um, assets that the master gave to you just in that moment of anger and revengefulness. So you just ask them for forgiveness, forgive them, forgive yourself, and move on. So even in this crookedness in relationship can bring us tension. So that's why he calls us be straightforward. That will create a healthy life. And he says kindness and cheerfulness bring the mind to poise. So spiritual development and higher journey is only possible when for a totally integrated inner personality. That is why the Lalaji Maharaj said character formation. And Ashtavakra says that these 5 values of life are the essential nature, and they are the nourishment for the soul. They are the nourishment for the true seeker on the path to God. And he says that only when we have these qualities, we arrive at witnesshood. And coincidentally, that also matches with the journey that our Daji gives us in spiritual anatomy. When do we arrive at witnesshood state? We arrive at it when we arrive at 4th point, where at the first point we arrive at balance, second point we experience peace, third point we experience emotional stability, at the fourth point we experience this state of witnesshood, where we are in the beginning of surrender begins, humility begins, Cheerful acceptance begins. That leads to the glimpses of witnesshood, not complete witnesshood. The total witnesshood starts at the ninth point and culminates at the 10th point. Humility starts its higher culmination at point 9, and that's why he calls that as Hanuman point. And also, Ashtavakra says you are not all these elements, you are not earth, water, fire, space. In order to attain freedom from them, you have to transcend the illusion and know that this self is witnessing all this embodiment of this consciousness. Your self is witnessing your entire consciousness. The physical body with all these five elements is just a vehicle where your energy field, the subtle body, expresses itself. And that's how it discovers the self, the Brahman. So, witness is one who stands on the path uninvolved. You're not involved. And that's why Daji compares it to earth. So much happens on the earth. Mother Earth is just a witness. And it's not easy states. We think we are up there, but it's very difficult. So, we are experiencing the higher states, but unless we master that earth element completely, we cannot really truly transcend. So that is why even at every stage of our life, we stick with the practice of the sadhana. And Ashtavakra concludes that if you detach yourself in this body and abide in consciousness, you will be in that state of happiness, peace, and freedom from bondage. So we continuously work towards that freedom. And in this, I read one statement from one sister who sent it to me. And I want to read that because it's very interesting and fits with our sadhana for where we are going towards. He says, the Vedas and the Upanishads say that what stops you and what helps you, what sets you free. They say the ignorance stops us and true knowledge sets us free. Illusion stops us, and what stops illusion is seeking the truth. So you can only cross the earth region, the illusion, the Maya point, only when we are a seeker. So that is the first step, is to learn to seek for something beyond us. Because a lot of people don't seek either. So the first step is seeking. And attachment and aversion are set free by the states of detachment and clarity. Desire and greed are set free by, here they say, shama and dama. That means balance of the senses. Do you see how our great masters have like hit the goal with one step? Meditation is the be all and end all, because it's meditating and cleaning and remembrance and repentance are what leads us to all these states of being. And ego, of course, with humility, and impurity with clear mind. And he says carelessness with mindful meditative practices. And this note is from the Upanishads that I picked up. So all these are for us to introspect and know that the great masters have covered all the essence of all teachings of the past and gave us a simple package of following a way of life. Heartfulness is a way of life. The practices are a way, lead us to a way of life. These practices will gradually lead us to the states of being. And that is why for everything master says, sometimes we get tired. Anything you ask, meditate. Anything you say, clean. Get a sitting. Meditate with transmission. Observe, introspect, ask for forgiveness. And Masters talks about this. In Jainism, there is a festival that one day they just ask everybody for forgiveness. And Master comments on that, saying that just one day in a year, they want to ask for forgiveness to release themselves of karmas. How about asking for forgiveness every day at bedtime? Introspect and ask for forgiveness for the wrongs that we have committed and the things that we have done with awareness, without awareness, knowingly, unknowingly. And that sets us free towards this ultimate path. And we are still finishing the chapter of Saguna and Nirguna Bhakti from Vinobha Bhave Gita. So he's talking about Lord Rama. Lord Rama went back. We were stopped at the state where Bharata was asking Lord Rama to come back. So Rama went back. No, Bharata went back. But interestingly, he did not live in Ayodhya. He did not live in the kingdom. He preferred to stay in a nearby forest doing penance, and he ruled Rama's kingdom from there. When Rama and Bharat met after 14 years, it must have been difficult to make out who of them was the true ascetic doing penance in the forest. Rama was actually in the forest, but Bharata created a forest and did his penance. If somebody draws a picture of this meeting depicting Rama and Bharata looking alike with just a little difference in age and having the same luster of penance on their faces, it would indeed be a remarkable and elevating picture. Bharat was physically away from Ram, but his mind was never away from him even for a moment. Although he attended the affairs of the kingdom, his mind was with Rama. Nirguna Bhakti, formless devotion, is thus filled to the brim with Saguna Bhakti on the form of his master. How can one then speak of separation? That is why Bharata did not feel any sense of separation. After all, he was doing the Lord's work. And this Daji says that, when we are all like, we miss you, Master, and all that. When I asked him this question directly once, and he said a profound statement: fulfill lack. So that is, we all feel some lack inside us, and that we are interpreting. But once with sadhana, we are able to fulfill that lack, feel that presence through his transmission continuously, then you don't feel separation. So now we are able to experience glimpses of that because of our sadhana doing correctly and our senses being in balance. When our feelings are in silence, we are able to feel the presence and not be so attached to the physical form and not feel the lack that we are away from the master. Young people often say we cannot understand all this talk of Ramanama, Rama's bhakti, Rama's worship, but we are ready to do divine work. Bharat has shown how to do divine work. He overcome the pangs of separation by immersing himself in that work. That is what Swadharma is, performing your duty in the state of akarma without expecting any praise or reward or any criticism. It is you are submitting the fruit of that result to the master. To keep doing divine work and so to have no time to feel the sense of separation from him is one thing. But it is quite a different thing to have nothing to do with the divine. To do the Lord's work and lead a life of self control is rare indeed. Because to lead a life of self control is difficult because our weaknesses are haunting us. That is why sadhana every day, cleaning that point B, making those intentions of point A, never stop. Bharat's attitude was that of formless devotion, Nirguna Bhakti. But Saguna continued to support Nirguna because he had his form of his master in front of him that supported his formless devotion. Bharat bowed to Ram's command to bid farewell to him and go back to Ayodhya. But he immediately turned back and said, Rama, my heart is still not reconciled to your decision. I feel that something is lacking. Rama understood the state of his mind and gave him his sandals. The respect for Saguna thus remained intact. Saguna did soften and brought warmth to Nirguna in the end. Lakshman would not have been content with Rama's sandals. He yearned for much more. Bharat's standpoint was different. Though he stayed away from Rama and worked from afar, his mind was full of state of being of Rama. To him, work was worship. Still, he did feel the need for sandals. It would have been difficult for him to carry on without them. He ran the administration, deriving his authority from those sandals. Both Lakshman and Bharat were Rama's devotees. Their standpoints were outwardly different, but although Bharat was committed to his duties and principles, that commitment too needed the reassuring warmth of his symbol. So that is why our sages gave the symbols of different gods and goddesses we can stick to. But instead of, the essence of it must be the giver of that. We stuck to idols. Complementarily between Saguna and Nirguna. Complementarity between Saguna and Nirguna, and examples from Lord Krishna's life. Tenderness and warmth of devotion must be there. That is why Lord told Arjuna, "O Arjuna, have attachment to me," and repeated the advice again and again. So that, what does our master said tell us? Connect yourself to the heart. If you forget, then go back and connect yourself to the master's condition, master's state of being, to the master. The Gita otherwise detests the word attachment and repeatedly exhorts to us to work without attachment, love or hate, and expectations. Non attachment is its constant refrain. And how we will arrive at this state of non attachment? With clarity. Still, it asks Arjuna to have attachment to the Lord. But then, attachment to the Lord is a lofty ideal. It has nothing in common with attachment to the worldly things. Worshipping with form or worshipping without form are closely intertwined with each other. Form worship cannot altogether dispense with formless support, and formless does need the warmth of the form. So that is why, in if we read Babaji's literature, until some point he meditated on the form of his master, and then he moved to formless and connected to that essence entirely. Work is certainly worship, but it needs warmth of feelings. If we just have to go on serving somebody, it is hard. But when you think that you're serving the master and your master is pleased with you, whatever you're doing, it gives you some kind of motivation. All of us, that's how we all serve. Pleasing his heart is our motivation. Feeling his grace is our motivation. The Lord says, "Remember me and fight." Work is worship in itself, but devotion has to be there in the heart. And if we look at this statement, the essence of entire journey is about arriving at that state of devotion. The mechanical action of offering flowers to the Lord's image is no worship. That action has to be saturated with devotion. Offering flowers to the Lord's image is one form of worship, but doing good work is another way. So here they come to the concept, instead of wasting, Taji hates it, not hate it, but he doesn't like it when we give him flowers. In America, when he first used to come, we would go to the airport and give him flowers. That flowers was $20. And he looked at one of our brothers, "Why are you wasting this money?" Because that can be utilized for a higher purpose. So in the ancient times, even though they say that, pushpam patram phalam, everything you give with love, he accepts it. But if, instead of wasting the resources on that, if we can help one more brother or sister or a starving soul, or utilize it for a higher purpose, then it is useful. In both of them, there must be warmth of devotion. If this warmth is not there, offering flowers to an image will be no different from offering them to a stone. It is the inner feeling that matters. It is devotion that makes the difference. Saguna and Nirguna, work and love, jnana and bhakti, all these are completely identical. They all lead to the same ultimate experience. Look at Uddhava and Arjuna. I am taking a jump from the Ramayana to the Mahabharata. But I do have a right to do so, as there is complete identity between Rama and Krishna. Uddhava and Arjuna are like Lakshman and Bharat respectively. Uddhava always used to be with Krishna, busy in serving him. He could not bear even a moment's separation from him. Without Krishna, life was dull and insipid for him. Arjuna too was Krishna's dear friend, but he used to live in Hastinapur away from him, doing his work. Such was their relationship. When it was time for Krishna to leave his body, he called Uddhava and he told him, Uddhava, I am going now. Uddhava pleaded, Why don't you take me along, like all of us? Let us go together. But Krishna said, No, I am not for that. When the sun set, it endows fire with its essence, heat and light. Likewise, I am leaving my essence, my light with you. He then revealed self knowledge to Uddhava and sent him on a journey. During the journey, Uddhava came to know from sage Maitreya that Krishna had bidden farewell to this world. But the news made absolutely no impact on Uddhava's mind. His case was not like when the master died, the pupil cried. The teaching and the learning were both wasted, if that would be the state. See, that is why a lot of times when one master passes away, people just withdraw, and that is not the right thing. You should serve. And that's what Babaji's dictum was. Follow the living master under all circumstances. And that's what Brother Rajagopalan once said that, always the living master is right. And you follow that. He did not feel that there was any separation. All his life he had performed Saguna worship. He had always lived in the company of Krishna. Now he had begun to experience the joy of Nirguna worship, the formless worship. When the master is not there, when you truly serve, you really feel the essence of the master, the presence of the master. And the joy actually, when you see him and he just says hello to you, is incomparable to the joy when you actually serve and you see his presence in the heart. So the joy that when you see master in a dream is so different than a joy that you actually see him in his physical presence. It is multifold. So in some sense, nirguna is formless, is multifold joy. So he had always lived in the company of Krishna. Now he had begun to experience the joy of formlessness. He had to reach finally the destination of nirguna. Saguna may come first, but it must be followed by nirguna. Otherwise, there is no perfection, no fulfillment. Arjuna's case was just the opposite. Krishna had asked him to protect all the women folk after his departure from this world. Arjuna came to Dwaraka, took them along, and proceeded to Delhi. On the way, dacoits robbed them near Hishar in Punjab. Arjuna was known as a man among men, as one of the greatest warriors of his time. He was known as the victorious, as he knew no defeat. Once he had even challenged and humbled Lord Shiva. But such a fighter could not face a bunch of dacoits and had to flee for his life because it was his master who was next to him, doing everything and protecting him. And without his master, he became nothing. Krishna's departure from this world had affected him so deeply that he had, as it were, lost all his vitality and strength. He had become a shadow of his former self. Thus, separation from Krishna in the end overwhelmed Arjuna, the Nirguna devotee. His Nirguna ultimately gave way. All his activity came to a standstill. His Nirguna experience, the formless worship, the value experience, his Nirguna experienced the value of Saguna in the end. Thus, Saguna has to go in with Nirguna, and Nirguna has to go in with Saguna. They complement each other. So, attachment to the form of the guide, the living guide, and also detachment from the form of the living guide. Both are needed to transcend into the higher realms. Saguna and Nirguna are one, my own experience. Hence, words fail while attempting to describe the difference between the Saguna devotee and the Nirguna devotee. Saguna and Nirguna come together in the end. Though the spring of bhakti may flow out of Saguna, it reaches Nirguna in the end. You know, we also feel that, I thought, oh, I'm practicing the senses technique. I am okay. I'm detached from the master's presence, physical presence, and all that. And suddenly you read about Lakshmana and Bharata, and all of us are in tears because you miss that physical presence of the master. Long back, I had gone to Viacom at the time of Satyagraha for the benefit of our American brothers and sisters. The famous Viacom Satyagraha took place in 1924 for opening the roads around the temple to the untouchables. Vinobha had gone there as an observer at Gandhiji's instance. So I had gone to Viacom at the time of Satyagraha there. I knew that the birthplace of Shankaracharya was somewhere on the Malabar coast. While passing along the Malabar coast, it occurred to me that Khaladi, the birthplace of Shankaracharya, must be somewhere nearby. On inquiry, my local companion told me that it was just about 12 miles away and inquired whether I would like to go there, but I declined. The purpose of my visit was to observe the Viacom Satyagraha. I thought it was not proper for me to go anywhere else. I still think that what I did was right. But every time I went to bed, the village of Kaladi and the image of Sankaracharya would stand before my eyes and I could not sleep. That experience is still fresh in my mind. Thoughts about Shankaracharya, the power of his wisdom, his divine certitude in the Advaita philosophy, his rare and fiery Vairagya detachment that considered the phenomenal world as trash, the illusionary world as trash, the serenity in his language, and the infinite debt that I owe him crowded in my mind. So, for Advaita philosophy, it means non dualism. Philosophers said they believe there is no duality between the individual self and Brahman, the supreme self. All is one. Then I realized how formlessness is filled with the idea of the form. Had I visited Kaladi, I perhaps would not have felt such surging emotions. Even in Nirguna, Saguna is at its zenith. But the thought of them is always there in my mind. Saguna thus lies hidden in Nirguna. They are essentially one. Worship of an image or visible acts of service and constant thinking about the world's welfare without any outward indication of worship, both these have the same worth and value. We will stop here. Before I stop, I had this thought the last week in one of the sessions. We were talking about Shankaracharya and how he says to be born in the human as a human is a blessing, and to have the idea of the goal itself is a blessing, to even seek for the higher self is a blessing, and then to find the master of a caliber is the final blessing. So I was always thinking, what's so big deal about being born in a human life? Even everybody, there's so many sinners, evil people that are being born in the human life. Suddenly, lately we've been praying for people who have departed, and some of them, when I see, in spite of their dedication, some of them are still lingering and they're waiting to be born on the earth, but there is no right womb for them. So the right vibratory match has to be there. For sinners, there is more match and they're able to come to the earth right away. And by God's grace, if they're able to catch even one glimpse of the Lord's vibration, at least they will start their journey from there. So then I realized why Babaji Maharaj, when one Abhyasi passed away and he, had he meditated for one more week, he would have been liberated. So that is why I realized, oh my God, how seriously we have to meditate. We don't want to be lingering in between, neither this world nor that world. That's why if you meditate meditate dedicatedly. So at least you just jump across. And if you really have to come, you will only come because of your highest condition, and nature chooses you to come and finds a home for you. But it is in between phase. And also there is regret in us that, oh, I wish I did more. I did more introspection inside myself. That was my feeling. I said, oh my God, I better do more introspection, more sadhana properly. And when I sat in my bed, sometimes you're tired, you're just like, okay, Master, good night. No, I just had to jump in my bed and remember that moment where Master Daji observed Chariji offering prayer. I said, no, every day I have to bring myself to that state of prayer when I offer the prayer. So let us take our